In this video, I'm going to show you the simple methods I use with my athletes to help them continue to make progress as long as possible, even when they've reached a plateau and they feel like that nothing they do is making them make progress. Once you understand this concept, you will never feel stuck and like there is no way for you to progress ever again. My name is Connor Barth. I'm a professional dunker, having measured a 47-inch vertical jump. When I first started training using these concepts, I was able to add 8 inches to my vertical in just 6 months. Then, when I came back from chemotherapy this last year, I was able to gain 10 inches on my standing and running vertical in a 1-year span. So here's everything that we're going to cover in this video. Number 1, the real reason that you hit plateaus. Number 2, the planning hack that allows you to continue to make progress after you've hit a plateau. And number 3, how to use this in training long term to see progress and avoid plateaus. So first, let's cover the basis of all training programs and training systems. On the first side, we're going to have activity. Activity is the things that someone is doing. So this could be basketball, volleyball, lifting weights, stretching, or really any kind of movement. On the other side, we have recovery. Recovery just means to return to a normal state. So through things like sleep and diet, your body can return back to its normal state. And when we look into each side of this, we actually can go just a little bit deeper and see each has one more additional thing we need to know. When you are doing activities, you are putting stress on your body. Stress is just putting pressure or tension on a material. So for you, this is putting stress on muscles, tendons, ligaments, bones, and so forth. When your body is not fully recovered to its natural state, we call this fatigue. Fatigue is to weaken by repeated variations of stress. So as you train and do different activities, you end up putting stress on your body, which leads to fatigue to some degree or another. You then recover from this, and you can improve or adapt to be better. And adapt just means make something suitable for a new use or purpose, or to modify. So this gives us a basic cycle of how all of training works. And it looks like this. You do an activity, which puts stress on your body. This stress leads to fatigue, which then you recover from and you adapt. And then you can go back to the beginning and go through the cycle again. So you can see how training is super simple at its core. You stress the body, recover from that stress, and then if the stress at the beginning was hard enough, you will adapt or get better, and you'll be better at the thing you were doing. So with this understanding, it brings us to the next part, which is why would you plateau to begin with? First, let's define plateau. Plateau means a state of little or no change after a period of activity or progress. So this would be like when you're lifting weights and you lift a heavier and heavier weight week to week, but eventually you're unable to lift a heavier weight and you go many weeks or even months without making any progress. It could also be that you're jumping higher month to month and you are jumping and jumping and jumping. And at first you jump higher every month, but eventually you continue to jump the same height and it doesn't improve. So to see why you plateau, all we have to do is look at the most fundamental relationship between activity and recovery. If you have a lot of recovery, but not enough activity, then you plateau. So if you almost never lift weights or never jump or never try to make those things harder, you wouldn't really expect to make gains, but that would be a plateau. The other side would be that you actually don't have enough recovery for the amount of activity that you're doing. And this would also lead to a plateau and eventually injury. So the basics of solving a plateau are that if you hit a plateau, you can work harder, or you can optimize your recovery so you have more, so then you begin to make progress again. For most athletes, and especially beginner, the real problem is you do not have enough activity and you're not working hard enough to really see progress. So all you would need to do is get more consistent and work a little bit harder, and your progress would come back. For the athletes that really don't have enough recovery and are working hard and have been consistently, you need to make sure that you're getting enough sleep, high enough quality sleep, and that you're eating enough and of a high quality source of food so that your body does get the recovery and you can make progress again. However, as you continue to train as an athlete, it's basically all but impossible to not hit a plateau at some point. The reason this happens is because when you're working on a quality, I'll use strength as an example here, the better you get at that quality, the harder you have to work to make the quality better. So this means more stress, which means more fatigue, which means you're going to need more recovery to be able to adapt for that specific thing. So if you take the average athlete who is, say, working on everything at the same time, you get the scenario where you started off with enough recovery, but as time goes on and you get better at everything, how hard you need to work to make any one of those things better is also going up. So then as you keep getting better at all these things, you run out of recovery to be able to get better at all of them, and you plateau on everything. So then if you keep trying to progress all these things at the same time, you'll make no progress, and eventually you'll probably end up with an injury. So then what are you supposed to actually do to make sure you keep making progress? Because obviously that's what we want. So luckily for us, there's this very lucky hack that allows us to keep progressing even after we've hit plateaus. Just how I talked about, there's a certain level of difficulty you need to get better at specific quality. There's also a level that you need to hit to be able to maintain a quality. And so while you might have to do really hard work to get stronger, you might only have to do a fraction of the work to maintain the strength that you have now. And this works for all of the qualities that you could train. This means that you can remove the focus from some of the things in your training and then put that focus on other qualities so they get more attention, so then you begin to make progress again. So let's take an example that I see quite often. You're a basketball player. You're working on basketball, which includes all your skills work and scrimmages and practices, and then you're also working on your strength, and you're also working on your speed. So when you're newer to training, you work on all these things at the same time, and you make progress in all of them. But eventually, you stop making progress, and you plateau in everything. So what we do is instead of working on basketball, strength, and speed all at the same time, we remove the focus of one, so let's say from speed, and we focus more on basketball and more on strength. Now, because you've given more recovery to these two things, they begin to progress again. After a while, because you still want to make more speed, you take the focus off of strength and you focus on basketball and speed. And then both of those things continue to progress. All we're doing here is taking the recovery that would be used to make all three better, and we focus it into two to make them better. This is what is called periodization. All that means is the process of dividing training into distinct phases or periods of focus. So what happens though if we continue to do this and go down this path? Obviously the athlete would continue to make progress, but eventually in this example, the athlete would have to go from focusing on both of the things and maintaining one to actually only focusing on one and maintaining the other two. So he might only work on basketball skills, but not focus on strength and speed at that time. And then in the off season, he might focus on strength to start and not focus on basketball and speed, but then focus on speed near the end, but not basketball and strength, and then go back to basketball when the season began so that he could have those benefits of more strength and more speed, but not actively be increasing them throughout the season. So as you can see, it's not like that you can progress for infinity. At some point, you'll reach a peak where the recovery you have and the stress you're able to do will match out and you won't make progress anymore. This would be your literal genetic limit. But this is assuming that you do everything absolutely perfect, and the odds of you ever really hitting that are very low. This is where it becomes really important too, to know what goal you're working towards. Because now you want to focus all of the stress and recovery on only things that are going to help you with your goal. So a person whose main goal is to jump as high as possible wouldn't be doing marathons and wasting time spending energy on this type of endurance, because the fatigue and the recovery needed for that doesn't really help them jump higher. So you want to take the recovery and put it into every quality, either improving that quality or maintaining that quality that's going to allow you to get better at your specific thing. So this is why you see things like track athletes, high jumpers, and things like this become very specialized. Because if you want to be the best of the best in the world at one specific quality, you need to use all of your recovery and all of your activity on that thing as much as possible. So sprinters will lack endurance, marathon runners lose power, and power lifters lose some speed, but they give up this balance to hit an extreme. This is not to say that you cannot have a high level in many of these things. You can actually look at decathletes and see that the world records in decathlons are pretty dang close to the individual sports. And for most of you, it's best to make sure you're getting a wide variety of training so that you have a healthy and solid base to be able to play your sport out of. But there will be times to focus on specific things that really relate to your sport so you can get better at your sport and transfer those things into your sport. But by now, you should really understand the fundamentals of why activity and recovery are important and how we can actually break through plateaus using periodization. So here's the recap. Activity and recovery create progress. You eventually plateau when the balance gets off. You can solve it by making the balance become correct again. Then, by focusing on specific qualities, you can begin to make progress again. And the more that you progress in any given quality, the more focused your training will have to become to continue to progress that quality. If you found this helpful and you want to continue to learn more, please subscribe, give it a like, share it with a friend. I'd really appreciate it. This is what I do every single day with my clients' programs and systems, and I'm going to continue to break down how I do it. I also released Athletic Essentials recently. It's just $25, a one-time payment for lifetime access. And this gives you everything you need to be able to progress and become all around more athletic, including strength, power, speed, your vertical jump, and your sprints. The link is in the description or up in the little wherever this is, so you can get started today. But with that, let me know in the comments what you found useful, any questions you have, and anything you want to see explained in the future. Have a good one.